Well, these people want to see the monuments. They talk about it, and we just figured, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's do something about it. Let's get it going. And it's going to be just nice to see their faces when they see the things. And they talked about it. They saw it in the different magazines, the VFW magazine or the American Legion magazine, the different monuments and memorials. They had to go up and touch it, look at it, and reminisce.
Name's Edward F. Engelbride, born and raised in Cold Spring. I was a U.S. soldier, got drafted in 1956. Got married in 1955. 1 year later, I got drafted in the Army. Went down to Fort Dix, New Jersey, took my first 8 basics in the Army. Then from there, I was sent to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland. Went to Battalion Machinist School, because I was a machinist. From there, they sent me down to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with the 168th Engineer Battalion. Was assigned to that outfit. Was down there for a couple of weeks, and then we gyroscoped up by troop train under combat conditions up to the Brooklyn Army Terminal. Hopped on an old clanker, U.S. General Hodges, the whole battalion, lock, stock, and barrel, all our equipment, the whole thing. We went over to Germany. Got off there and rode a troop train 3 days down to Stuttgart, Germany. Was based over there for the 18 months. Seen a lot of the countries and a whole bit over there in Europe. Took my leave time over there. Came home. They flew me home because the battalion wasn't coming home together, all together, gyroed over. So anyhow, I got into the Brooklyn Army Terminal, transferred, got out the whole bit, and then put 6.5 years in the reserves over in Newburgh. It started in Cold Spring, way back when Tom McCourt, God rest them all, Tony Constantino, and a few of the boys and a whole bit. And then we transferred to Beacon. From Beacon, we went over to Newburgh, and I went to Camp Drum for three summers, whatever. And that was it. And I got out, and here I am.
What was your rank when you got out?
Specialist, 3rd class, back then. Same as a corporal back in the old Army, the whole bit like that there.
So would you say that you hardly ever think about your service time, or once in a while, or do you think
No, I
about it
think
a lot?
about it. I had a lot of friends, met a lot of people. I've been communicating with them over the holidays and stuff like that there. We have never had a reunion, but we were spread out like that there. And the only sad thing about it is when you send out Christmas cards and it comes back there, or the wife will write you back a letter, the other, and say that, oh no, he passed away 9-10 months ago. So, I'm just lucky that I'm still here. But I would like to say that great honor to be in the township with, like Placido Party Segro, World War II, same as Joey had it, World War II, local hero on the whole bit. And there's a third one besides. Who's the third guy? I don't know. I'll remember it in a minute.
So why do you want to come on this trip?
Well, it's probably been about 50 years or plus that I visited Washington to see the memorial, Vietnam and the Korean conflict, because they made all those statues and all of it right there in Talix and Beacon. And I've seen them when they were here, and then they put them in down there, and the only thing I've seen it is on, TV or stuff like that to see. I'd like to see it now in person. So that's it.
What's the number one thing you're looking forward to seeing in D.C.?
In D.C., well, the World War II and the Korean monuments, the soldiers' monuments mostly, and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I've seen the changing of the garb, but it's always impressive when you see the snapness and the military quickness. Good.
So if you had to do your service all over again, when you think back on your service, would you do it the same way? Would you do it any differently?
Well, if I knew it was going to go through it, like you asked that question there, I probably would have been, like my father was in World War I, that's his ring, 1916 to 1918, joined the Navy, went to France, fought in the war and the whole bit, put 3.5 years in overseas and came home, and that was it. He did his bit. And my brother-in-laws were in the Navy, and I had a lot of Navy friends, and I just wasn't ready to, join up right away. I was too young. I was only 21 years old when I got drafted. Same year as I got married, and I says, "No, I'll wait. So that's all. I'm not sorry. Good experience.
You know, as two guys who are in the Navy and served your country in the Navy, what's it feel like to be here, Tom?
Oh, I love this place. It's really, really cool. I'd like to see a little more World War II stuff, but I still, I mean.
What grabbed you that we saw? What did you, anything you learned that you didn't know before?
No, because I've been here before, and I'll come back again. I love it, It's really cool.
Being the first time here, it's really, really awesome. Really awesome. Just the equipment and the amount of knowledge that these people have of our equipment that we used on World War II and the Korea War and all the way back to the American Revolution. It's a good education, and I would recommend it to anybody to come down here.
Stuff about the Revolutionary War was really interesting.
Yes, yeah.
I wouldn't want to have been one of those powder monkeys.
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
A little different.
A little different today, but it's a beautiful place. They keep it up well, and it's really nice.
You bring back memories of your service just being here?
Oh yeah, sure. You look at these old carriers here, but there's a display outside that's probably more fascinating than any in here. It's an actual piece of a Japanese battleship where a 16-inch shell went through it, and it's about 3 feet thick, and it's just incredible to see it.
Yeah.
What struck you the most?
Just everything, really everything that's in here, and the way it's set up, and just you walk around, you see different things, and you don't realize how big these items were that were on the ships, and when you're standing alongside of them, they're awesome. They're truly awesome.
So it didn't make either one of you wish you had joined the Army?
No,
I don't like snakes.
and I wound up with all kinds of snakes because I never set foot on a ship. I was with the sea beast, and we were on land all the time. So that's why I was over here taking some pictures of what they had, a little bit that they do have about the sea beast.
And there's nothing prettier than being in the Pacific Ocean at night. And no ambient light, and you touch the stars. Really touch them. Yeah, the angle deck on the new carriers is right about here, and your shop is right underneath. The ordnance shop is right underneath the flight deck. So you come up, there'd be a little staircase onto the flight deck, and have the bombs on that side, and then you'd take the bombs to the planes wherever they were parked. But that's where I used to like to sleep, right at the angle deck, because there was fire hoses there. And it was like being on a cruise when you weren't working, It was really beautiful. Well, we take trips. Terry and Ed and I, we take day trips. We go up to the Army in Water Vallette, or we go to a museum in Connecticut for military stuff. And if you ever go up to Water Vallette, the oldest armory in the country is up there, where they made the guns for World War II that went down to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, were put on ships. And they used to float them down the Erie Canal and take them down the Hudson to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And it's fascinating because they still got the old mill and the machinery running by belts. And it still works, and it's still an active arsenal. And it's really a fascinating day trip, There was no Sundays or nothing when you're on
Sundays?
station.
Was that around 1970?
There was Sundays in the service?
Nothing. 18 hours a day.
Was that around 1970?
67.
67.
67.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you had to make a choice whether you wanted to eat or sleep, other than work.
Same thing with us. We were working 16, 18-hour days, 4-hour watch at night, and you get 4 hours of sleep if you were lucky.
Wow. And that was the Mekong Delta, you said, right?
Down the Mekong Delta, and then also in Thailand when I was in there. So, other places it was a lot easier, but in those two places it was hectic.
I retired as a command sergeant major in the Army. which is an E9, which is the top rank for enlisted people. And served in the United States Army Special Forces. Now everything, they're basically called the Special Ops. And at the time when I went in, we didn't have the Green Beret. President Kennedy gave us the right to wear the beret. And at the final resting place for him, we honored him by carrying his coffin right up to where they buried him in Arlington. And the draft was on. My mother and father said, "Yeah, why don't we sign you into the Army? This way you come out, you get a job, they're not going to say, oh, we can't train you because you're going to be drafted." And that's what was happening at the time of the draft. And basically, I guess I never came out. I found a job.
How long were you in?
All told, I have about 45 years of service. And it was all good. A lot of fun, a lot of laughs. Met a lot of nice people. And some wacky people. Like you do anywhere in the world. And the last mission I was on was a prisoner of war with the Gulf War. And
where was that?
That was in 1991, in Saudi Arabia. And I wasn't an MP of the skills that I had that they needed. And we helped build up the prison camps and started taking in the first group of prisoners and seeing how docile they were. They weren't built up to what people said the bad guy. And met a lot of nice people over there working with them, and there was interpreters for me going around the country, and had one guy that was an Egyptian fellow that kept thinking he was the Duke. And every time we'd go out, he'd walk like John Wayne, try to talk like John Wayne, but he knew all the movies. And remember when we had to feed them, so we had the interpreters when they went with us. So we had MREs the first time.
What's an MRE?
Meals ready to eat. And he said, "I like chicken." So my driver turns around and says, "Okay, I'll give you a chicken." He goes in a box, looks at chicken, throws it over his shoulder to the man in the back. The man says, "This isn't chicken, there's no bones." He's feeling the bag. Didn't realize it was deboned. The poor guy, it was a new experience for him, But it was they say there was a lot of nice things.
So if you had to do your service all over again, would you do it any differently?
No, I wouldn't. And starting to look at seeing how the military's running now through the eyes of my grandson who enlisted. And I'm saying, gee, I never did those things. It seems like they have it a little easier. Just a little easier. Until they're mobilized and sent overseas. But lifestyle and everything, they have their own personal bedrooms, lived in barracks, tents, slept on the ground.
So the Army was really your life's career. Do you think about it a lot, or you just kind of put it
I
aside?
think about it a lot. Yeah, I get phone calls from a lot of friends, people that serve with me in different units, and we're always talking. Try to get together a couple of times a year. It's a great time.
I think our outfit merged together with we made combat infantry, and the artillery and everything. We made a combat team and the 3 different infantry divisions. Company D, Company 16, Company 16, and the 18th Infantry was in it. It was in the 1st Infantry Division, plus the 1st Engineers and the hardware and the high military. I think the heavy department, heavy artillery, the artillery. They were all joined together, and we were all on maneuvers at the time, and we were on ships, the English ships. Queen Elizabeth ships had the 1st combat infantry business, and we were on the sea down in Mediterranean Sea for 34 days.
Wow.
Waiting for President Roosevelt to give the okay to go ahead on in. So, and on that day, I think it was the night that we landed in Africa, in Azure. That was a terrific landing there because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were up against and everything else. But we did lose a lot of people on that landing. I know I jumped into the water up to my neck, and I didn't know whether I was going to live or die right there then. But we made it all right, so everything was fine.
You were in on a few invasions.
And that, beg pardon?
You were in on more than one invasion.
Yes, we were on. That was our first one, and we dug holes. Believe me, on that sand on the beach. And and short all the way up through, because we were expecting tanks on us all the time. We had that, but we didn't see too many tanks. We were so far. We got the outfit landed, but we did lose a lot of guys at the time. I don't particularly know how many, but I know we lost a lot. I know all my friends, a lot of my friends that I knew, and I knew most of all the company because I was doing their records. I had their records at the time, so kept moving and moving and moving. So to me, I thought everything was going along fine. They were doing good, but we were fighting. The fighting was terrifying too. So, but we got through with that all right. It lasted about maybe 3 or 4 months, I guess, we had that. So, because we seen a lot of cars and damage, broken the equipment and everything on the way up, so everything was fine. But they had a lot of fighting, and the fighting was like in the winter time too, so most of that was during the winter time. But then it goes, I think it was about 7 months we were on that, on the southern Africa invasion. So we went back to camp, and I think after that was over, anyway, we went directly right from the end of the Tunisian thing ran across, and it was up to the landing in Sicily at that time. So that's in July, I think it was then. So that was pretty good. We had a little time on that one too, but we had the Germans on the run most of the time anyway. On that time, they were retreating all the way through. So, Ernie Powell's done this better than I'm doing now, but he was the right up on our thing, so he's done pretty good. Yeah. So that's when the officers all got together, and we met, I guess, a couple of more. That's when General Roosevelt was promoted up in Major Generals or wherever office he was, but I was still a corporal and a sergeant at the time. I think I didn't get another thing there. I was a PFC at the time. I made corporal when I was overseas, and then at the end of that, then when we got into Sicily, I think I was we got to make the payroll up for the boys after that session, so he had a little money to spend before we landed in Sicily. So, but we were still training at the same time because we didn't waste too much time on it. We went directly from Africa to Sicily. So, but that was in July of 1942, and 43 it was, July of 43. Then we landed in Gela, Sicily, but that only lasted 37 days. It was just 34 days of fighting in Sicily because the Italians, we were fighting actually to the Italians at first, and then the Germans, they all surrendered, and the Germany would actually surrender there then. So 37 days. So and then we went back to, I guess it was around France or England or France. I think we had to go back to France anyway. That's where we landed after that. And then got prepared with the prepared work and everything. We got all straightened out with our equipment and everything else like that. Got rid of got the records all up in case. And then
That was D-Day, right?
and then we went prepared for, we were on maneuvers in some bay and climbing up and down the ladders again, so we're trying that. So finally we got down to that. Well, in the meantime, in South America, in South Africa, I was hurt, and I was riding in the truck, in the back of a truck with several other boys with me, and we were going down. Now, whether we had airplanes flying overhead or not, I don't remember that, but I know I woke up with over a ditch down underneath the pickup truck. We went off the compay. We went off the bank there, and the truck turned over, and I was pinned underneath. And I had my head was split. I had like 48 stitches put in the head. That I went back to, they went by airplane, and I was in like a transport airplane. There wasn't a helicopter, it was a transport plane. I forget what kind of plane it was big. But I was in a hammock on that. I was in a stretcher on a hammock and riding back, so that's where I got, when I woke up, I guess I must have lost presence. I lost just about a month of things because I was in and out of the house. I couldn't wear a helmet for over a year because I had full of stitches in the head. Had something like 48 stitches in the head. Ready to die. I was without a helmet, so if I got caught, and I did get caught a couple of times, and even the general stopped me one time. So I told him I took my hat off, and I showed him the scar I had. Just put your hat back on again. Go ahead. So you don't have to worry. I know you couldn't wear a helmet on there. So. But I was wearing the shell after a while, while I could do it, so everything was fine. And then we went back to England, and we had a little time then to spend, so after that, everything, Normandy was a big war, and that was it. But we had the Germans on the run, I think, I'm pretty sure, and we kept moving and moving and moving, so I spent a lot of times in the headquarters department since I got hurt on the thing. So, but I was in the back further, so at that time, but everything was fine. We landed in Normandy on D-Day, so the whole division landed on D-Day, so that was it. That's it. And after that, well, we had some good times and we had some bad times. And the weather and everything was, I know the fellows that were on the front line, and they had a terrific time, I told them. But everything seemed to be all right. We didn't lose too many guys, but our company, but it's just wonderful. It's Wonderful, very wonderful. It's an honor to be here. There's over 4,000 flag stars here, and each star represents 100 people that are buried there. I just can't talk enough about it, so everything is fine. I'm glad I've lived long enough to do this thing, to see it. Everything was great.
Ray Jones, I was in the Army from 61 to 64, and then I was Spec 4 in the Army. Yeah.
Okay. And where did you serve when you were in?
Germany. Yeah.
So have you been to DC before, to the monuments? Or?
Yeah, back in the 80s. Yeah.
What did you think of it at the time?
It was really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. They just opened the wall not long before that. You know. It's good.
So what's the number one thing you want to see in DC on this trip?
The wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was impressive.
Yeah. You know any names on it?
One, the kid from Garrison, Livermore. Probably heard about him.
So, Ray, do you think a lot about your time in the service, or just rarely, or do you think about it a lot?
Rarely. I'd say. It's not on my mind all the time, but I'm glad to have done it.
What was life like in Germany when you were serving?
It was pretty good. A lot like in Hudson Valley. I mean, the area, like Hudson Valley. Made a lot of friends over there. Yeah. It was good.
So, how long were you in again? How many years?
3.
3 years. So, if you had to do it over again, would you do it in a different way, or?
No, I don't think so. But today's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Back then, I put in for Japan and I got Germany. So.
Well, my name is Terry Leahy, and my age, I'm 86. I'll be 87 in November, one more month. And I served in the Army, the combat engineers. I was a sergeant first class.
And where did you serve?
I served in Korea, 51, 52.
Okay. And I'm wondering about, your service in Korea. Is that something you hardly ever think about, or once in a while, do you think about it a lot?
I think about it once in a while when I see old movies. Sometimes I think about it. In fact, yesterday I was having one with Humphrey Bogart, and it was in Korea too. It was a MASH thing, MASH outfit.
So have you been to DC before to see the monuments?
I was on the honor flight the first week in this month. So went down there for one day. It was quite a deal, really.
So, what made you want to come on this trip as well then? Since
Well, we had arranged this trip before, and I got a letter. I had applied for that honor trip maybe a year and a half ago. They've been taking World War II veterans on the honor flight, and then they just started taking the Korean veterans. So half our load, when we went, half of them were World War II and half were Korean veterans. This was the first flight that they had Korean veterans on.
Right. So now that you've been there, what are you looking forward to seeing the most, I guess, on this trip?
Well, I'd like to go to the museums. We're going to go to the Navy Museum, and that's supposed to be quite a deal. When we went at the beginning of this month, we only had the day, so we went to Arlington Cemetery, and that's in Virginia, and that was a long procedure. And what they did there was, they knew it was a lot of veterans coming because there was an honor flight from Michigan there also. And they had wheelchairs set up where you could sit, and they reduced the time of the honor guard to 20 minutes, changing in the guard, so that we could see it and not have because it was 95 degrees down there when I went.
Wow.
It was pretty hot.
So if you could do when you think back on your service, would you do it any differently if you could rewind the clock and do it differently somehow?
I doubt it. I wouldn't do it any differently. I think it was an experience, and I'm kind of disappointed they stopped the draft, to tell you the truth, because it was, 2 years in the service. Well, most of it was spent in Korea, but that was all right. I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones about.
I know you came under fire a few times, but
Yeah.
did you learn things as well when you were there?
Yeah, I learned a lot about the country. I learned a lot about the people. Learned a lot because I used to write my wife and tell her, I said, I'm not happy being here, but I'm glad I'm here rather than have this happen back in the United States. Because I saw so many families just ruined, young kids losing their parents and stuff like that. And we used to set minefields, and we had pick-up minefields, and they had a lot of heavy rains and monsoons. And when the monsoons came, they'd wash the mines, big anti-tank mines, they'd wash them down the road. And you had a hell of a time finding them and keeping people from getting blown up. Because one of our own dozers ran over one. The guy got blown up in the air with it over one of our own mines trying to clean up. So it's hard. Have you read about the monsoons over there recently? If you compare to this rain, it's unbelievable. Washed away a lot of bridges we put in. This stuff's tough. But that you learn a lot. You grow up fast.
How old were you then when you were there?
I was 21. Just turned 21. So it's a long time since then. 66 years ago.
Any of your kids or grandkids go in the military?
No, not yet. One of my kids, while my kids are in a different age group, they my son Patrick had enlisted in the Air Force, and then what happened? He had fell and broke his leg the day before he was supposed to go, and he ruined a nerve in his knee. So he had ended up with a dropped foot, and they just wouldn't take him. Yeah.
So I'm curious about your comment about the draft. So you think that some compulsory service would be a good thing for people and the country, you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, not that you have to serve overseas or anything like that, but it's a good experience. I mean, you learn a lot of discipline. I mean, today I don't think there's enough discipline in the high schools. I mean, you can't even correct somebody today. Yell at them because you get caught doing that as a teacher, you're in trouble. When I went to school, it was a lot different. Well, you went to Catholic school, right? Yeah.
Well, I think that's about it. Other than, I think I've asked this before, but is there any one incident that comes to mind most clearly with you about your time in Korea?
Well, I probably told you that story before. My wife wrote me a letter telling me that she was expecting, and it was going to be expecting on October 15th. Well, on October 15th, we were making a river crossing, and all of a sudden we got an enemy mortar barrage coming in on us. First thing came to my mind, I said, I'm not going to make it. My child's going to be born on the 15th. But he was born on the 15th. So that's the reason I keep remembering it, because next month he'll be 65. Terry, he'll be 65.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite a deal. Yeah. That's, you remember stuff like that because that just happened to be that particular thing that hit in your mind. And the heavy rains and the monsoons, and in the winter, freezing your rear end off in the winter is bad. It was really a bad winters.
Most people probably don't realize Korea gets that cold.
Oh.
Most people don't know, right?
No, it gets real cold, especially North Korea. I mean, I spent most of my time right in North Korea, and I read different places like Yeonchan, Busan, and Kamwon, and all those places. Well, our outfit, we built the Peace Bridge. When they started to have, in 1952, they started the peace talks. We built the Peace Bridge for them to come across. And then I came home, and they didn't sign the peace treaty until 1953. It was another year they were there.
I guess they didn't like your bridge.
You know what they argued mostly about, I remember? The table that they were going to have the peace talks. You know that?
Yeah.
It ended up being a round table so that nobody would be at the head of the table. Yeah, it was tough. talking to these guys here about it. I said, it's amazing how we started out in the 38th parallel, pushed everybody up into North Korea. Then they had the peace talks. My outfit, we built the peace bridge. And now we're right on back to the 38th parallel with a demilitarized zone. So you're right back where we started. I lost my lieutenant, my platoon leader, over there. That was kind of rough because he was a nice guy. He was good. He was a leader. He was our platoon leader. Lost him. That was tough. When I look at that wall, I see these guys all bundled up like in the winter, and I can remember it was cold, really cold. So they used to take turns sitting in the truck, but the truck was just, and I'd just kind of fall asleep, and I said, it would be the easiest way to die would be to freeze to death. Fall asleep, wouldn't know anything. Like I always remember that, because a lot of guys, that happened, like in foxholes and stuff like that, where they couldn't get to be, didn't have the right equipment, you know, stuff.
All right, my name is Phil Schatzel, Schattle, right? Went in the Army, and I went to Germany for about, I would say, almost 2 years. It wasn't in combat, but it was a good duty. And I was head of, I made an appointment in, when I was in 30 years I made sergeant.
Very good.
Yeah, with pay. That's good. And I was head of the huge bombs and what do you call it? Very, very, very large bombers for making huge bombs and stuff. And I did all the mechanical work for it.
Wow.
So it was quite an interesting thing. You know.
I guess you had to know what you were doing.
It really did, because I did all the calculations for the things. I was in the big tent, but the other guys were in the bomb not in the bombs. They were in the where all the Burtons, everything was there. But it was good duty, you know, and that was one of the experiences. And I was a teacher.
You were a teacher?
Yeah, I taught in Briarcliff, New York, if you know where that is. And I taught a lot of sciences, but it's mostly chemistry. And I worked there for 40 years, along with another place for 3 or 4 years. But I was mostly there in Briarcliff.
So when you look back on your service, would you do it the same way again if you had to do it all over again, or would you do it different?
No, I would do it the same way. Yeah, I'm 82 years old now, so I don't think I'm going to be called in. And I had a lot of experience with a small school in Haldane. I don't know where that is even, but in Cold Spring, New York. Actually, I was raised in Nelsonville, New York, but my house now, a big house, is right in the backyard now. So part of Nelsonville too.
Yeah, right
So,
on the border.
I grew up there. I have three sons. My one son's here, and I had a daughter and another daughter, and they're very successful now. And,
When you were in the Army, where did you do your basic training?
Oh, down in Virginia, maybe. Yeah, or about that. Yeah. They rushed it right through. They only did like 6 weeks. That was it. And then I got into the other problem, the special problem, with all the guns and everything, you know.
So was the training pretty tough?
No, not at all. Some people thought it was tough. I thought it was nothing. I was in the Boy Scouts and stuff. It was the same as the Boy Scouts, but it was a good duty, really. And
so, what are you looking forward to the most for seeing in Washington, in D.C.?
from Washington,
The whole city?
I was there about 20 years ago, and I like to see how the monuments are now. I know the World War II monuments are there, right? We had a place in Beacon, New York, and I don't know where that is, but in Beacon, they made a lot of the memorials.
That's right.
So it was quite the thing. But it was a good experience, you know. And I had a lot of. I have 3 nice children and a very nice house. I play the piano. I'm very good at it, and I've been playing that for 30, 40 years, 50 years maybe on the piano. But I'm picking it up again and stuff. So it's quite the thing.
Served in the United States Navy in the Tonkin Gulf on board the USS Constellation in 1967, and we spent 7 months over there. My squadron flew what they call an A6 Intruder. If you ever watched the movie Flight of the Intruder, that was my squadron with the shape of the spade on the plane. And the squadron was stationed in Whidbey Island, Washington. It's when you're on a flight deck of an aircraft carrier, it's an adrenaline rush better than any drug you could ever take. When you're working as a team and getting the job done, it is really special. And the guys that are with you are really special. And you just pray you get through the day and get up and start over again, same thing. This place is special. It's just, when I'm at this memorial, it's sad, you know. All these guys lost, and it's a very humbling place to be. I have a hard time coming back, but I always do. Thank you.
My name is Steve Mirando. I'm 67 years old. I served in the United States Navy Mobile Construction Battalions, the CBs, and I was in Vietnam.
Yeah, what was your rank?
My rank was CE2, Construction Electrician 2.
So what years did you serve?
1969 to 1973.
Okay, you said you served in Vietnam?
In Vietnam, yes.
Yeah.
And other places, but I did combat duty in Vietnam.
Have you been to the monuments in D.C. before?
No.
No, so.
I have been to the moving wall when it come around,
Right.
but I haven't been down to Washington, no.
So what's the number one thing you want to see most while you're there in D.C.?
I want to go to the wall. Definitely go to the wall.
So, do you think about your time in the service? Do you think about it rarely, just once in a while, or do you think about it a lot?
Well, usually once in a while. If somebody brings it up, I'll talk about it, but most times I keep it off to the back.
Yeah. Do you have a particular memory that stands out clearest in your mind with your time in Vietnam?
Not really.
No.
Not really.
So if you had to do it all over again, what would you do in terms of your service? Exactly the way you did it, or would you do?
No, I'd go back into service again. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that it's my country, and I'm gonna fight to protect it.
Any other particular thoughts on the trip to D.C.? Why are you coming on it?
Well, it was offered, and I have never been down to D.C., and I figured there's a good opportunity to get down there and see some of the monuments and and just get away for a few days.
And what areas were you in Vietnam when you were there? What was something you can tell about some of the projects you worked on?
We were in the Mekong Delta. We built the advanced tactical bases for the PBR boats, the Swift boats that we had. We built the docks and the bases and the base and housing for the people that would be running support out of the Mekong Delta.
Here at Vietnam Wall, we're at section 25E. Why are we at 25E?
We're at 25E West because the name of Keith W.F. Livermore is on this stone here. He was a gentleman from Cold Spring that got killed during Vietnam.
And did you know him?
Yes, I did. I played Little League Baseball with him.
And how did you learn he died?
In the paper. The whole town was saddened.
Yeah. What year was that?
Had to be 68. It was before I went into service.
It was before you went to Vietnam.
Yes.
Did it kind of influence, your choice of service or anything?
No, it didn't really.
What's your thoughts about being here today, over and above, that individual?
It's an awesome site. It's an awesome place. Well, all of the stones, the memorials are all well taken care of, and it's a tribute to the services of each of the veterans, be they Vietnam, Korea, World War II, the women's veterans that all served. It's a great honor to be here and just see these stones.
Is this your first time here, Tom?
Yeah. This is my first time at this wall. I've been to the moving wall a number of times.
What was your first impression of seeing the whole thing?
It's awesome. It's really awesome. So.
Any thoughts?
No. It's a shame that so many people had to die. And there's still so many people missing. And someday maybe we'll find out where all the rest of them are, but I kind of have my doubts.
Michael Anthony Mastrolia. I was an Army brat. I served from 1967 to 1970 with a one-year tour in Vietnam and the U.S. Army.
What's your rank?
A specialist 5th class.
And have you been to D.C. before to see the monuments?
Years ago, I lived in the eastern shore of Maryland, so I've seen the monument before.
Good. I guess you don't mind going back?
No, no, I have a few friends on the wall.
So what's your Cold Spring connection?
Last year, I married a Cold Spring girl.
So, what would you say? Do you think about your time in the service rarely, or once in a while, or do you think about it a lot?
Well, like I said, I was an Army brat. I was born in an Army hospital. Like I told a recruiting sergeant, after my 3-year tour was up, I've been in more Army bases than you have. I've been 20 years following my mom and dad around. I did 3 years active duty. I want to settle down and get some roots.
Yeah.
I figure I had 23 years in the Army.
If you had to do it over again, would you do it much differently?
No. No.
Pretty happy with the way it worked out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I trained as a helicopter mechanic. When I got to Vietnam, they said, you're going to be a door gunner. The last part of the enlistment contract was, we guarantee you the school that you enlisted for, but if we have a need, that's where you're going.
And what was your assignment?
I was a helicopter door gunner with the 92nd Assault Helicopter Company.
So which parts of Vietnam did you serve in?
Basically, 2 corps, about the middle of the country, up in the highlands and whatnot.
Did you fly a lot?
Every day.
Do you have a particular memory that's kind of etched into your brain, a particular incident or memory that you can't forget, or even if you wanted to?
I had 2 weeks to go. my tour was up, and my roommate, he was really freaking out. He just had a bad feeling. So I said, all right, I'll fly in your place. Well, that turned out to be a bad decision. Wound up, had an emergency landing that didn't go well, and I wound up in a hospital in Germany and woke up, like 5 days after the incident.
Wow. I guess that's how you finished your tour.
That's it?
Well, you made it.
Yes, I did.
So what's the one thing, what do you want to see most when you get to D.C.?
The Vietnam Memorial.
You said you've been to it before?
Yes. I was living on the eastern shore of Maryland, and I went when they dedicated it. I believe it was in 1983, and I marched down Constitution Avenue with a group from my hometown of Norristown, Pennsylvania, and listened to all the. Like I said, it was a dedication.
Very good.
Been back quite a few times since, but it's been a while.
Who's that?
He was one crazy helicopter pilot. For the most part, I was his door hunter. After a while, a lot of the crew learned to fly the helicopters, and he always wanted, he got tired of flying all the time. He wanted to go back and shoot my gun. But I wasn't with him the day it was killed. He got trapped in fog.
His older brother.
Crashed into the side of a mountain.
Or dropped it.
He was from Oklahoma, had a real thick Oklahoma. I miss him. And I've been back a couple times since. Like I said, I got 8 friends on the wall, but I didn't want to pick out each one, so he was my favorite.